Hello Mets fans, welcome back to the channel, and you know why I'm smiling cheek to cheek just like Mr. Smile, Francisco Lindor, and himself. From the title of this video, you guys can tell already, we have a monster collab in store today, breaking down a thorough discussion on the New York Mets and their top 5 offseason targets for this MLB offseason. It'll be myself alongside, yes, the one, the only, the OG diehard New York Mets fan here on YouTube, one of the best MLB YouTubers in the game today, and it has been for years now, that being, and yes, GiraffeNeckMarc. I still can't believe we were able to get this done, and shout out to Marc again. But I'm so excited to get into this video, guys. I hope you all enjoy, so make sure you stay all the way till the end and find all the deets and all of our top 5 picks, breaking them down, really just having a fantastic discussion about our favorite team of the New York Mets and their options for this MLB offseason still. And if you guys did end up enjoying this kind of content, please make sure that you smash that like and subscribe button, share this video with your friends, put on that notification bell, all those great things. Trust me, we are just getting started here on the channel. The biggest collab by far, the best video on the channel by far, and the sky truly does look like the limit here at Wordy NYM. So thank you all in advance, guys. But without further ado, let's get right into this video. All right, Marc, thank you again so much for coming on. It means the absolute world. For people that don't know this is our second try at this because I had an audio error the first time around, but I'm so happy to get this out finally. And thank you again, Marc. So yeah, I cannot begin to tell you how much I appreciate it. I've been looking up to you for a while, as I'm sure you know by now, and you have definitely been an inspiration for a lot of us, not just in the YouTube community, but especially with Mets fandom, because you are the OG when I think of Mets fans on YouTube. It starts with you and then it goes through everyone else. So how are you doing today?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Thank you for the kind words. You know, audio stuff happens. I'll give you a little story real quick. When I did my video with Jeff McNeil, I thought I was recording the audio, didn't record anything. Luckily, I had a backup recording. Stuff happens. When you get like into the Zoom calls and everything, it gets all mixed up. So, you know, I'm glad to be back and we can talk baseball and Mets again. Why not?
Yeah. When did that McNeil video happen?
That was like right when coronavirus went down, because he was like, he needed to learn how to stream. So I reached out to him. I was like, I could help you. And then he was like, okay, cool. What do you want to have? I was like, play me for a video. And now we're friendly. So that's cool. Oh,
that's awesome. Yeah, no, yeah. I need to check that out then. But okay, so what we'll be doing today, obviously, as you guys know, is we're going to be breaking down the 5 top players for the Mets to go after this offseason. Obviously, they aren't going to land each and every one of these players. That's realistic, but there's a good reason to be very optimistic about this Mets team. It's really hard not to, especially after that still mind-boggling Lindor and Cookie trade. Like I saw today, at least at the time of recording this, you put up like, wow, Lindor's still Met. I don't believe it. Neither do I. Like, I'm still just watching him when a Mets hat. I'm like, come on, who photoshopped that on him? Like, it's such a bizarre feeling in Mets fandom. But before we get into each player, what are your initial thoughts on just this new regime that has come in and basically changing the franchise like never before?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so refreshing. We had so much, like, I don't want to say turmoil, but like, we were a joke. We were, quite frankly, quite literally the joke of Major League Baseball. And I think right now, bringing in Steve Cohen, bringing back Alderson, bringing in Jared Porter, we have a legitimate front office. We have a legitimate owner who's going to spend money. I don't think the Mets are a joke anymore. And like, normally you have to prove it on the field, but I think the Lindor move, at least right now, is like, oh my God, they're actually real. They are not lol Mets anymore. They're real.
Yeah, no, exactly. I couldn't have said it better. And it's still hard for me to grasp. I think for all the Mets fans out there that were very skeptical, because as we know, a lot of Mets fans have been Mets fans for a long time. We're talking 2-3+ decades. All they've seen is the Wilpon regime and mediocrity their entire life. And if they're a Jets fan, then, you know, it's double the whammy. So now you have this new regime, and that really is trying to sway you out of the gate like that. Any rational Mets fan or any New York fan out of the get-go is going to be like, no. You need to do something to prove to me that things are really different here. And I think Steve Cohen did that and beyond with the deal with Lindor and Cookie.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can't make a bigger splash. I know James McCann is going to be technically the first move, or Trevor May, whatever it is, but everyone's going to remember the Francisco Lindor trade. That's the marquee move right there.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I think that's a perfect segue into our first player today, that being in Brad Hand, because he's a guy that a lot of Mets fans, including myself, would have loved to see in the lineup, and is probably the most realistic out of these top 5, I would say, because as we've seen between Sandy Alderson, among others, really after the Lindor trade, when they were asked, you know, what is the next move for the Mets, they stated how they're definitely keeping eyes at relievers, especially lefties. And, you know, when you think lefties in the market, it's hard to overlook a guy like Brad Hand right there and for the taking. and with the connection that they had from Alderson's first presser saying that we would have loved to claim Hand when he was first put on waivers a couple months ago, but we simply weren't in the right position to do so yet because we weren't fully in the regime. You know, not everything was signed off yet. Brad Hand, as we know, is a 3-time All-Star, twice with the San Diego Padres and once with the Cleveland Indians, and now himself being one of the biggest free agents out there. What are your initial thoughts on Hand and the possibility of him landing with the Mets?
Yeah, I think it's, like you said, probably the most likely of all the names on this list just because of the money and the price, and some of the other guys on this list you're going to have to trade for. He makes the most sense. We need a left-handed reliever badly. We lost Justin Wilson this offseason. We could bring him back, but why would we bring him back if Brad Hand is available right now just for a little bit more? He's not going to cost a lot. You can get him on a really good contract, at most probably 2 years, $20 million. Can't see it going much higher for that. He's really good, like among left-handed relievers in Major League Baseball. He's one of the top 5 best, and he's had seasons of success. He's had that sustained success. He's pitched in big games before. He gets big outs. He won't be the closer per se, but you know, maybe we go to that Rays system where he comes in to get the big bats in the left, or the big left-handed bats. It could be the 7th inning, it could be the 9th inning, whatever it is. You like to have more arms, and Brad Hand would be that perfect left-handed arm to add to this bullpen. We need it badly.
We absolutely do, and I was a little upset when I saw the Mets didn't bring back Wilson. Could they? Obviously, they still can. We'll see what happens if they can get him on, say, a short-term deal. Okay, but to what you alluded to, why would they if they do, in fact, land Hand at that point in time? Because Hand, I think what really separates him from Hendriks, because I love Liam Hendriks too. I think when you're talking about a guy that's really an aggressor on the mound, look no forward than the Australian machine over here in Liam Hendriks. But when it comes to the differences here, Hendriks hasn't had the sustained, reliable success that Hand has had throughout his entire career, and that is really what separates them, and is why all of us Mets fans would love to see him land with the Mets, obviously, and also because of the fact that he's a lefty. They have no arms there outside of our very coveted Jerry Blevins. Yes. But you know, realistically, Brad Hand may be the most notable guy that very well could be next for the Mets acquisitions this offseason.
Yeah, as much as, you know, I do love Jerry Blevins and he has been great for us in the past, that also was 5 years ago. And I don't think he really pitched much last year, if at all. I'm not going to feel confident if our first left-handed arm out of the pen is Jerry Blevins, especially when a guy like Hand is still available and very gettable.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it better, but I think that really has everything to do with Brad Hand now. So let's just segue on to our number 4 here, that being, and the guy that I've talked about actually a couple times just over the past couple days on my channel, that being Nolan Arenado. This guy needs literally no introduction, but I'm going to give it to him regardless. Look at his accolades. He's a 5-time NL All-Star, 4-time NL Silver Slugger, a 4-time NL Platinum Glove, an 8-time Gold Glover, and a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. He currently still has 6 years left at around $199 million on his contract. Hefty price, but that's what you have to give to get for a guy of his caliber that's literally been the best third baseman in baseball probably since a guy like Mike Schmidt.
Yeah, no, old Nolan Arenado is the complete package. He hits for a pretty good average. He's got the power. His glove is absolutely disgusting. If it wasn't for Matt Chapman, he would be undoubtedly the best defensive third baseman in baseball, cannon of an arm. There's literally nothing this guy can't do except maybe steal a base, to which you go, I don't care, because he's hitting bombs and he plays great defense at third. He's the complete package. You have the possibility that he would be here for a very long time. Of course, he does have the opt-out after this season, so that's always going to be the risk when you do trade for Nolan Arenado. He can opt out, but I think if the Mets were to be the team that ends up trading for him, I don't see an opt-out coming. He has that opt-out in there in case something like this with the Rockies happens, where they're not going to be able to build a team around him. He wants to win. He's been in Colorado for so long. I'm sure he's heard the stuff about the Coors effect. He wants to prove that he can play outside of there. So if he stays in Colorado, I think he takes the opt-out. But if he gets traded to a team like the Mets, I think he's going to stay because he's going to play well. He's going to get his money, and he's going to be on a winning team. I love Nolan Arenado from every way we look at it.
Exactly. He's been a player that us Mets fans have all been admiring for the longest time. Like, if there's a dream guy to go after, especially after David Wright's days were done at third base, it is none other than Nolan Arenado, as would be the same for any other fan base out there that's seeking a top-end third baseman. It goes through him and then everyone else. And I would love for you to touch on what we actually touched on our previous time trying to record this in regards to Arenado and the effect regarding Coors and how much that is, say, a fallacy or the things that people don't take into account.
Yeah, so of course your offensive numbers are going to be boosted when you play in Coors. It's got the biggest outfield in Major League Baseball. You've got the altitude. There's less pitches that you're able to see. What is it? Curveballs you don't really see when you're in Coors just because the spin doesn't really work. So you take a pitch out of a lot of pitchers' arsenal, which is why they struggle on the pitching side a lot. But from the offensive side, there are clear positives. But people don't realize that, yes, while the Coors effect is real, it doesn't make or break a player. He's still going to be good outside of it. And the way you can see that is by looking at his road numbers. He has an 800 OPS on the road for his career. And that's also with the negative side of the Coors effect. You play 81 games a year at that mile-high altitude. When you go away from Coors, you are drained. Your body has to get used to being back, to level ground. You see a lot of articles, you can look it up, about the Dodgers. After they play a series in Colorado, their record is atrocious for like the next 6 or 7 games. They're an under 500 team after they play in Colorado. And many players have talked about the effects, that it basically feels like there's like a huge weight on their chest. It's a different feel. It's a different game. Yes, he gets the boost while he is home, but he gets absolutely destroyed when he's away, and he still is a really good hitter. So I'm like, with all those things against him on the road, along with just being on the road, people tend to not hit as well to begin with. This guy's a stud. I think people just get too caught up in the Coors effect thing and don't realize that this guy is a special player no matter where he plays.
No, exactly that. And I'm so glad that you brought up all those points, because it just shows you how much more impressive it is to see him not just playing at, say, an average caliber, but literally being the best third baseman in baseball for these past 5+ years. It's been remarkable. And it really makes me think about another guy, another Mets target, even though he's not on our list, just to throw him as an honorable mention, if you will, DJ LeMahieu. Like, look at what DJ did, especially after he left Coors with the Yanks. Yep. It's not like he's been still one of the best hitters in all baseball, and especially for the Yanks past couple of years. We get Jed Lowry, that's a different story. But my point is that there's many guys since leaving Coors have continued to produce and even better their careers, and I don't see that really being any different with a guy Arenado, who's still going to have the best glove in the game, and you really can't tell me otherwise.
Yeah, I think with a lot of the guys where you watch the Rockies play, you can figure out who the guys are that are benefiting the most from playing in Coors. You can figure out who's not going to be able to take their game to the next level. But a guy like Nolan Arenado hits 40 homers a year. He hits a 900 OPS. His bat might go down a little bit. That's fair to say, but it's not going to drop off like he's going to be a bad player anymore. He's still going to be, at worst, a top 5 third baseman in baseball. Yeah,
and I don't think that's a bad issue to have, especially for the Mets acquiring him. And the bigger thing, too, before we get on to our next player here, is what I love about the whole Nolan Arenado rumors is, yes, it is a little far-fetched to say that the Mets can land him. It's the same thing to be far-fetched about really any other guy out there that is technically, 1 year removed, 1 year away from being a UFA, because we all know that market is flooded with all these shortstops, Trevor Story leading the way, and they are in such a similar situation to Cleveland, where they are backed in a corner. They want to make sure that they can extend Story long-term. They view him, Story's arguably the best shortstop in all baseball. He's definitely one of, for sure, and they want to get him on a long-term deal just like that they have Arenado. And at this point in their careers, they're obviously prioritizing Story to stay long-term and for Arenado to be dealt. And because that, they've reportedly shown heavy interest with wanting to make a deal happen with the Mets for Arenado to get rid of him, is telling that if a deal were to happen, the Mets probably are not giving up any significant prospects out of that in that top 10, I would imagine, after what we saw in the return for Lindor and Cookie. And you obviously have to give up some on-field talent, including guys like Brandon Nimmo, JD Davis. They will always come to mind. I honestly think, as much as I would not want to see this player dealt, Dom Smith would be highly susceptible to possibly being dealt there. Should it be, I feel he would really thrive in Coors. Not that I want to see him being dealt at all. Yeah, no. I think when it comes to the situation here, if he would have to be the key piece and literally close to nothing else, you do it any and every day of the week regardless. So the Mets would not have to give up the farm for Guy Arenado, probably just some assets that are currently in more so a platoon role, or for Nimmo's case is really a guy that can be easily filled in by Jackie Bradley Jr. or George Springer if they're still able to go down that route on some others. Again, I don't want to see them get rid of any of these guys, but the reality is you have to give up something to get the best third baseman in baseball at the end of the day.
Yeah, this isn't, MLB The Show franchise where you can turn on override trades. The trade has to make sense for both teams at the end of the day. We're going to have to give something up to get one of the best players in baseball. It's not going to be another Lindor where it's like we gave up nothing.
Exactly. That was literally a dream times 10. And they would have to give up some salary, probably get rid of one of that Cano or that Familia contract as well, which I'm sure that the Rockies wouldn't mind, to make sure that things can get balanced, knowing that they're saving a boatload getting rid of Arenado's contract. But unless you want to add anything on him, I think we will get right into our third player.
Nah, I think we should move on to that third guy. Let's talk about him.
Okay, the third guy is probably my favorite guy in this list, just because of how much team control he has, how young he is, how he has literally no innings on his arm, and Luis Castillo. This guy is one of the best changeups in all baseball, as we know. He's already an all-star, was an all-star in the 2017 season, was an all-rookie, part of the all-rookie team, I should say, and was a 2019 all-star in the NL. This guy's been awfully consistent, only just has right over 500 innings on his arm, which is ridiculous. 28 years of age, prime of his career, still has around 3 to 4 years left of control on his contract, just making $4 million with, I believe, 2 arbitration eligibilities. It doesn't get much more than that. Would it take a hefty cost to get Castillo? Absolutely. This is the type of guy where, okay, you probably have to give up a top prospect for, but would it be worth it in the end? More than likely.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to be able to keep Lindor, Ronnie Mauricio is probably the guy to go, and I'm completely okay with doing that with Cincinnati. It's a perfect fit. They need a shortstop, and while Mauricio is not ready now, the Reds are clearly showing they are also not ready now. They are, selling off pieces. They're looking to rebuild. They also have Eugenio Suarez there too, who they're looking to trade another piece that the Mets could possibly be interested in at third base. But for Castillo, it feels again like another perfect fit for the Mets. They have what they need. They have that young shortstop that they can build around. I'm not sold on Mauricio being the stud just yet. Hasn't put up great minor league numbers. Him and a couple other pieces for Luis Castillo, who'd be such an incredible arm to add to that rotation. Dude's got the best changeup in baseball. I mean, you get him around DeGrom, Syndergaard, Carrasco, Stroman. We have Peterson, Castillo. I mean, you're just naming all these incredible pitchers. That's the kind of depth that you win a championship with. You get Luis Castillo. The Mets are a serious contender to be a World Series champion.
Exactly. If you bring in Castillo, then you have the potential where once Thor comes back, either in May or June, I think he might be in sometime in May, but if June, no problem. Then when you have David Peterson that you literally need to push out of the rotation in the bullpen, that is such a great problem to have, if you ask me. And it brings another lefty in there, should that be the case where he is looking like the 5th starter at that point. But have Castillo in there, that locker room would just be electric in my mind. Between Lindor coming in now as well, you can maybe even have a package deal, because as we know, the Reds are in fact trying to shed more salary because they had that playoff run, but to no avail, and they simply can't afford everyone. They're already trying to deal guys like Castellanos. They're keeping tab. They're letting teams show interest in him. Same thing with Mike Moustakas. And if they do in fact deal a guy like Suarez, he very well could be a perfect fit for a package deal with the Mets, where maybe they don't have to give up just as much because they know that they're taking on some more salary there, which could very awfully similar to Carrasco's situation with Lindor. So we will see what happens there, but I love the idea. I think Castillo is definitely the most ideal pitcher to go after out of all the guys, either through the trade market or for agency, in my personal opinion. But he's definitely one of those that if you can land him at the right price, even if you have to get rid of Mauricio, it won't matter because you're keeping Lindor for the next decade, presumably, and then you can just roll with a team that's going to be dominant year after year.
Yeah, I mean, you get Luis Castillo. Talk about, making a big splash with Francisco Lindor. That's the big name, but you want the final piece to really make the Mets a legitimate contender. You get another pitcher like Luis Castillo, who can be a Cy Young caliber pitcher, a Cy Young caliber arm. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, exactly. We could do this whole video on Castillo itself, but we're going to get on to number 2 here, and that is the guy who literally every Mets fan has been talking about, in George Springer. Springer, we've seen highs, we've seen lows this offseason in regards to the Mets and their target in George Springer. Can they land him? Can they land the guy who has been so dominant with the Astros team? And taking the cheating scandal aside, he has still been one of the most consistent hitters in baseball. He's one of the few hitters, actually, after the cheating scandal officially happened, with everything regarding the Astros, to stay consistent. His past year in 2020 season had another strong year as well. It looks like he was playing up the same numbers as years prior. Even at the age of 31 now, he's still a 3-time AL All-Star, 2017 World Series MVP, but we can scratch that, and he's a 2-time Silver Slugger. So this guy has what it takes to win. He would easily be the best center fielder for the Mets, even with him not mainly being a center fielder throughout his entire career. I love Nimmo, I really do. He's better off being in the corner, if any, and then you can make things happen if you still want to go down that route with keeping him in the roster. Springer, he's looking for upwards of $175 million. Reportedly, Andy Martino, take it with a grain of salt. But what are your thoughts on George Springer, and do you think that the Mets realistically still have a chance at landing him?
Yeah, I mean, with George Springer, you're talking about one of the, top 3-4 center fielders in Major League Baseball. And honestly, he could be up in that top 2 category, depending on, where Cody Bellinger ends up playing and all that kind of stuff. But he's a top 3 guy. He's so incredibly good. The defense, it's going to be, better than Brandon Nimmo. It's not elite. It's not, Gold Glove for sure. You're not getting Kevin Kiermaier out there. But his defense is going to be an upgrade. And his bat is also going to be an upgrade. His bat has been so good the last 2 years. If you take his 162 game average from the last 2 years, 50 homers a year with an OPS at like 950. I mean, sign me up right now. I know the money's going to be a lot, and we are are competing with the Blue Jays. That's what's probably going to hold us back, is going to be the money, because we got to pay Lindor. We got to extend Conforto. We got all these guys that still need to get paid, and you got to make sure your guys get paid. You don't want to just keep on bringing in these new dudes when the guys have been here, are established, shown they can perform. I love George Springer. I'd love him on the team. Like you said, a little probably unrealistic at this moment, because before Lindor, that would have been our big guy. But now that we got Francisco Lindor, maybe a little less likely. But if we can land him, I mean, he just automatically raises our team. I think I was going through our 1 through 9 if there was a DH included. Mm-hmm. There's no weak batters. Like James McCann would be hitting 9 probably, maybe. Or you have Jeff McNeil and Nimmo towards the bottom of the order. That's like ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. They'd be loaded.
Exactly, because we also had the Mets stay in the short 2020 season, led the entire league and had a historic season actually in OPS, even though it's hard to take it with the full sincerity given that it was a 60-game season. But regardless, the batters are there. We know this. And you bring George Springer, it's like, okay, now you're trying to be a World Series contender. Here you are trying to push for playoffs. Now he takes you to that next level. And say what you will about him, he still does have that championship caliber. He knows what it takes to win. He knows the atmosphere, and I think he would thrive in Citi Field. And you can put him anywhere in the lineup. This is another guy like Lindor too. You bring them in, they can bat you first if you need them to, but you don't need them to. It's beautiful knowing that the Mets can have all these different situational hitters in any which way that they're going to thrive. And I know that it does seem a little far-fetched. There's reports that the Mets are probably around either 30 or 40 million as of right now before they hit the 210 million luxury tax threshold. But the biggest question, that's what is going to be the decider with a guy like Springer more than likely, is how much money are the Mets actually willing to part ways with this offseason? Do they have a lot more where they have no problem pushing that 210 luxury tax? I have literally no clue, and I don't think either of us will either until we see some more things happen. So time will tell. It seems like a ticking time bomb there. I do think George Springer will definitely land with either the Mets or the Blue Jays at this point in time, but as you said already, I would love to see him in the Mets orange and blue.
Yeah, he'd look real good. And a UConn kid too, local. Let's bring him back. But, for the right price. We still got to be smart. We can't go crazy just because we got Francisco Lindor.
Exactly. And if he's really focused on his future and wanting to have continued success, then he knows where to land. Because let's be realistic, exactly. The Mets do not need to do selling in regards to acquiring players anymore. That was evident when they first signed James McCann. He was like, we really didn't have much talk in regards to, what direction the Mets are going. I was like, I knew that this was the place to be. God even sent me, basically. So I think that's telling that Springer, he may have to take a pay cut, but it would only help both sides in the end if you're actually focused on more of a team mentality, if you will.
100%. That's the Steve Cohen effect right there. Yes, Uncle Stevie, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Stevie. All right, getting on to now number 1. And the guy, this might be very controversial to some. He's a controversy regardless of how you feel about him, and that is Trevor Bauer. Bauer, as we know, has stayed multiple times his connection with the Mets, really admiring what Steve Cohen is doing a YouTube video a couple months ago that got every Mets fan going ballistic, including myself. Was that part of obviously just him building his media platform, obviously, and trying to get as much attention as possible because, hey, he's a huge free agent right now. He's arguably the biggest free agent out there. So why is he going to take as long as he possibly can, build his brand, and really get all these fan bases involved? Of course he's going to do that. And I would probably do the exact same thing if I was in his shoes. So kudos to him. But I know that there are people impatient out there. I get it, but patience is a virtue. Look at that Lindor trade. It's okay at the end of the day. But then you have Bauer here, who, yes, he just won the 2020 Cy Young in the NL, beating Jacob deGrom and doing so. But then you look at, he was a 2018 All-Star as well for Cleveland, a guy who has had 2 seasons in his career with a 2.2 or less ERA. Outside of that, he's been a 4+. There's a lot of inconsistencies there. So what are your initial thoughts on Trevor Bauer, his connection with the Mets, and do you think that he is still a realistic option for them in this year's free agent market?
Yeah, so I think Trevor Bauer's market might not be as robust as a lot of people think because he wants an insane amount of money, and there are only a few amount of teams that can really do that. And right now, the 2 teams that I see being the main suitors for Trevor Bauer is going to be the New York Mets and the Angels. And the Mets, they fit on the short-term side. I think the Mets could give him a 1-year deal, pay him something, below deGrom, of course, because deGrom needs to be the highest paid pitcher on that team. But you give Bauer maybe a 1-year, $30 million contract. You let him prove himself again next season. This guy is going to be good. He's one of the hardest workers in Major League Baseball. Whatever you got to say about the guy, you cannot say he doesn't work hard. You can't say he's not smart. Can't say he's not trying to get better and trying to win. That's all he seems to care about. He wants to be the best pitcher possible every year. I love that. The dude's a gamer. He wants to be better. You get him in that team for 1 year, $30 million. That's fantastic. He proves himself. He can go get that Garrett Cole money the next year. That's no longer our problem. He can help us out in 2021. But then you got the Angels and maybe another team here or there that I'm forgetting about right now They can offer the long-term contract. They can offer the big money. He's not going to break the record. There's no way he breaks the record this offseason. I would be absolutely shocked. It's not that I don't think he's that good of a pitcher. It's just I don't think teams are going to be willing to be willing to throw out that kind of money to him based on a 60-game season. As good as I know he is, and as good as a lot of people know he is, teams are still going to be cautious because it was 13 starts, I think.
Yeah.
That's going to keep people a little cautious, but I don't think there's any signs of him slowing down. He boosted up his spin rate, and I know that's a whole story in of itself.
He just wore a spin rate shirt in his video from last night. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love that. But yeah, he's boosting his spin rate. He makes money. He's going to make your team money, no matter how you slice it. Even if he pitches horribly, he's going to make your team money. He is somebody that people can't take their eyes off of. Is that going to be a distraction in New York? That's something to consider. I think he'll be just fine out here. I really would love the Mets to get him. Now, I was talking about Castillo. Castillo hasn't won a Cy Young. Castillo doesn't have the Trevor Bauer type stuff. Bauer's on another level when it comes to the kind of stuff that he has. He's a complete pitcher. You get him in that rotation. I mean, oh my goodness, that's the best rotation in baseball, I think.
Oh, I completely agree. And it's so interesting when you take a look at Bauer because from his video last night, at the time recording this at least, he basically said, okay, this is what I'm looking for as a free agent, and this is what I'm not looking for. And he made some points I really thought were telling of the Mets still very well being in this thing. And the most notable was the fact that the Mets are a team that is going to have continued success, continued playoff runs, but also pushing for a World Series. That was one of his main points and where he wants to land. He obviously is not going back to the Reds. I'm sorry, the Reds. I know you loved him there, but realistically, he's going to go to a team that's going to have continued success. And if we're weighing the options here between themselves and the Angels, I think realistically, and this is what I'm saying, ain't bias, the Mets on paper have a far better team than the Angels do. The Angels aren't too far off, but that rotation still needs some immediate help. The bullpen has gone better, but realistically, if you're doing one-on-one, I'm taking the Mets any day of the week, and I say that with literally no bias. Nothing wrong with Mike Trout or anything else, but the Mets are in a prime spot to take advantage of the situation, and they're also a team that I would imagine would be fully willing to let Bauer be who he is, be in this open market, this big market, and be able to continue to profit himself, show him around with the other teammates, because he said another point is that he wants to interact with his teammates and have them, on momentum and show them off and do all these different things and help build their brands as well. That would be great for a guy like Stroman, for example, among some others. So there's a lot of different caveats there, and I think that would bode so well in Flushing, Queens with the Mets. And also take into account, too, that in a contract situation, either short-term or long-term, they very well could do something of a situation like a type of option. Maybe it's a 4 or 5 year deal, but there's an option after the first year. So the first year, he's making decently low behind DeGrom, but then if he performs after that, if he maybe reaches a certain point, then for the following 3 or 4 years, he's making a good amount where they feel it's deserving. So there's an option that could maybe be weighed between both the Mets side of things and Bauer. So a lot of options there, but I would love Trevor Bauer with the Mets. I know that there's a lot of things up in the air with his spin rate and other things. Regardless of what he's doing, he's highly devoted to his craft, and I admire every single second of it. From everything that I've learned about him just over this past couple months, really, because I did not know him on the back of my hand like I feel I do now, is clearly telling that this guy's going to continue to work. I think that we have yet to see the best of Trevor Bauer. I think that he definitely has another at least 1 or 2 Cy Young caliber seasons in him for his career.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who just pumps. He goes out there and he shoves. I love that term for him because he really does. He just goes out there and just shoves it down your throat. It's like, yeah, you think you're going to hit this? Beat that. And that fits in perfectly with a lot of the guys the Mets have. DeGrom has turned into that kind of pitcher. Yep. Oh, yeah, hit me. Syndergaard, we know about him. I mean, once we get him back in that mindset, maybe Bauer's the guy who can unleash it in him. I mean, you've seen what Bauer has done to pitchers and what Driveline has done. And as crazy as this sounds, he might be able to make some of these Mets pitchers even better by being on this staff. His impact stretches so far beyond just his actual play on the field. He's really, you got to like him a lot. And Sammy's talked about it. We're in the entertainment business, and Trevor Bauer, he's entertainment at the end of the day.
And this is a proper way to address entertainment at Citi Field instead of taking the A-Rod and J-Lo approach. Yes, I don't know if you remember what they were planning to do in buying the Mets. I'm so grateful that did not come to fruition. But
thank you, Steve Cohen, so much.
Trust me, I literally get on my knees to him every night and say thank you. But okay, so I think we hit the nail on the head with everyone. And again, realistically, the Mets are not going to be able to win all these guys, but it's going to be very telling. Maybe as soon as tomorrow after this video comes out, what direction they go down. If you had to ask me, I'd say Brad Hand is the most likely guy to come off this list next, either with the Mets, with the White Sox, whoever. But regardless, if the Mets can land possibly at least two of these players on this list, then I think you easily have clean sweep the offseason, the best offseason Mets history. I don't know if you agree or disagree there.
Yeah, I mean, like it's rivaling the offseason where we got, Delgado, Beltran, Pedro. That was pretty electric. So this would be right up there. And we know what that Mets team did. Very close to the World Series. I would be happy with that again.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I think we got everything today. So again, thank you so much, Marc, for coming on. It really means the world. This was so much fun. Again, I apologize that we're doing this for round 2, but I think it was better than the first round anyways, getting those nervous jitters out of the way. But if there's anything else that you want to say where people can find you, please do it. But seriously, thank you again, and I wish you nothing but continued success with your channel going forward.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words. Thank you for having me on. You guys, if you don't know me, GiraffeNeckMarc, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, anywhere there's social media, you will be able to find me, GiraffeNeckMarc with a C. And yeah, thanks for having me on the channel, man. I'm always happy to talk with another Met fan, and it's also good to see another Met fan in the YouTube space. I was getting a little lonely out here. Yeah, no, I'm happy to have you here, and trust me, we're only the one of many. As you can see, there are a lot of other guys now. I was very hesitant to make a channel. I almost was drifting away with baseball at one point because of this regime going down. But with Steve Cohen and everyone else coming in, it was like, okay, now I can finally start talking about my favorite team, because there's something that isn't depressing happening with them. Correct.
It's truly quite the opposite. So a great time to be a Mets fan. I look forward to talking to you again soon, man.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm so excited.
All right, have a good one.